In our spotlight this morning, big news for the Murdaugh family. We know Buster Murdaugh, the son of convicted killer Alec Murdaugh, is suing several media outlets, accusing them of libel. Now, a federal judge says that some of Buster's cases, including the one against Netflix, must be heard locally in Hampton County, South Carolina, not in state court over in Charleston. Now, last year, Buster Murdaugh claimed that documentaries alluded to him as being involved in the 2015 violent death of Stephen Smith, who was an openly gay teenager in class with Buster. Now, you may remember the Netflix doc, Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal.
The Murdaughs would just make someone disappear.
There were so many rumors that Buster and Stephen were intimate together.
Stephen's death is now intertwined with the Murdaugh.
Lawyer had found drugs under Alec's bed.
She knew too much.
Moselle. It's like massive playground.
The way Paul told it, it was for drugs and strippers and everything. You can't believe everything Paul says, neither.
So that was one of the things that prompted Buster to file these lawsuits. And we should point out that the media companies, including Netflix, have denied the allegations brought against them. So what does this latest move mean? Could the judge's decision to move some cases end up being a big win for Buster? Let's bring in attorney Eric Bland, who represents Stephen Smith's family. Eric, good morning. Thank you for coming on. Your thoughts on whether this is a win for Buster?
Good morning. It is a win for Buster. Julie, as a lawyer, you know that federal courts are courts of limited jurisdiction, and you either have to have a federal statute at issue or you have to have diversity of citizenship between the plaintiffs and the defendant. In this case, Buster named a South Carolina defendant, Michael DeWitt, who's a journalist from Hampton County, to try to keep the case in Hampton County. The other defendants removed the case to federal court to Judge Gergel's court in Charleston and said that naming Michael DeWitt was a sham defendant, meaning it was done to bust diversity. What Judge Gergel ruled is, in connection with the motion to sever, some of the defendants said, look, the Netflix documentary involving Michael DeWitt and Netflix has nothing to do with Warner Brothers and Blackfin and all the other documentaries. We need to have our cases severed because they're separate facts that are at issue for defamation. Buster wanted the cases in Hampton County because he believes, and so does his lawyer, Ken, that he will get a better trial in his home locale, that there's still a lot of Murdaugh loyalists there, more so than there would be in federal court in Charleston, where you draw from a wider range of geographical area. So as it stands now, there's going to be 4 defendants that are going to have their cases tried in federal court in Charleston and 4 defendants in Hampton County. Now, is it a win? I do believe it is. However, federal courts are much faster than state courts. They have what's known as rocket dockets. And so the 4 defendants who are in Hampton County will benefit from the proceedings going faster in federal court in front of Judge Gergel. In state court, they're going to have to find a judge that isn't conflicted off the case because, as you know, many of our state court judges were conflicted off the Murdaugh-related cases. So they're going to have to find probably an upstate judge, and that's going to take time to filter through discovery and motions hearings. So on the face, it appears it does benefit Buster, but in the long run, because the federal cases are going to move faster, we have to wait and see.
Sure. Eric, thank you for that. Tell me, I know you're in very, very close contact with Stephen Smith's family members who have you representing them as this investigation is still wide open into his death. So first question regarding them, how do they feel about these lawsuits that Buster has filed against these media outlets?
Well, as far as the allegations, nobody wants to be falsely accused of murder. So I certainly don't blame Buster, who has the rest of his life in front of him, to have to figure out what he's going to do to be pegged as a murderer. So I don't fault him for bringing that. As far as the Smiths, they believe that this discovery process, both in the state court with the 4 state court defendants and in the federal court with the 4 federal court defendants may yield some further evidence regarding what happened to Stephen in 2015. Remember, discovery in a civil case is so broad. It ultimately will be what is relevant and would lead to admissible evidence. So some things that you can discover ultimately don't get admissible in court, but are fair game in discovery. So we believe that ultimately, and now our reward, you're showing the billboard is 30, it's up to $50,000. We think it's going to yield some information regarding Stephen's death. So as far as the family is concerned, they applaud Buster for bringing these cases.
Eric, wanted to ask you about where things stand with the investigation. So the reward money's up, as you noted, 50,000 now as opposed to 30 the last time we spoke, which is fantastic. Any tips, anything coming in that's giving the family some hope of finding some answers?
The short answer is no. We're not getting any information from SLED other than they're saying it's an ongoing investigation. And unfortunately, this cone of silence that seems to exist in the Low Country has some steel and concrete walls. We thought that after Alex's murder conviction that many people would come forward with facts that they have regarding what happened to Stephen, because people do know. There's enough that has traveled through the rumor mill that 5 or 6 people have a good idea of what happened to Stephen. But this cone of silence is so strong that it's going to take a Herculean act, Julie, to break them down.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's so terrible. There are so many people interested in this case and who have hearts that are breaking for Sandy Smith and everyone who loved Stephen so much. There is an anonymous tip line, right? People can do it anonymously without showing their name or faces. How might they do that, Eric?
Well, SLED has put out a phone number for people to call in with tips, and they could have called in, but we just don't know it. SLED in the beginning was sharing more with us than they are now. So I'm not saying that there hasn't been any tips given. We just don't know about them. It's quite possible, since the award has been increased, Julie, that they have gotten some tips and they're acting on them. But it's really slow. You know, don't forget this has been going on since 2021. In July, a month after the murder of Maggie and Paul, that SLED reopened this investigation, and they've also had an impaneled grand jury. It just doesn't seem to me that it would take 4 years to get some information that they would be able to bring charges on against somebody. It could be that it's a negligent type of killing. Somebody didn't realize it. They left the scene of the accident. Who knows? But 4 years just seems like a long time. Really, it's longer than that, because the Department of Transportation had it basically since 2015. So now we're talking 10 years.
Yeah, you're right. It's far too long. Well, we certainly haven't forgotten about Stephen here and appreciate the update. And we're mindful that he's been a victim here. And as Buster's cases, proceed through the system, of course, Buster deserves a fair trial, and as do these media outlets. And Stephen deserves a justice for whatever happened to him. I hope we get some answers someday. Eric, thank you so much
So do
for
I.
the update. We'll speak again soon.